and welcome to The Year We Started a podcast where we like to kick back and enjoy some... Whoa, nope. Man, I haven't messed... Nick, I tell you what, I haven't messed up an intro in a long time, and I'm going to keep this in.
You've been good. You've been good.
I've been good, and I wanted to kick back in because it has been a while.
I was literally just thinking that I was going to say I'm your kickback Nick.
Yeah, to harken back to the old days when you also messed up intros. No, I'm going to also mess this intro up, but nonetheless, this is a podcast that is born Phoenix-like from the ashes of last year's podcast. I am your co-host, Jeff.
And I'm your other co-host, Nick.
And this is our podcast where we kick back and enjoy talking about some things that are fun and interesting to us, despite being half a continent apart. Nick.
Yes.
Despite absolutely changing our intro, I have some things to talk to you about that I feel like... Well, okay, let's level set here. Narwhals, as a noun, means things to different people. What is your knowledge level of narwhals? And like anything that you might have that might be interesting for the podcast here.
Okay. Narwhals are mammals that have horns. I'm pretty sure that they're mammals and they live in the water. Mm-hmm. And the video game Starwall was really funny and fun.
Okay. I've tried to place this in my memory. Were you in Kansas when we played Starwall together?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we played
I was
for some reason somebody had to make a run to GameStop, which like I say that like, oh, had to make a run to, like, there's some pressing thing. And I think that we were stuck there for like 20 minutes or something. And you, me, and a couple of our other guy friends were like playing Starwall. And then I was all in. I was like, this is the best. This is really fun. And yeah.
Okay, so I may have to reorder our show notes to talk about GameStop right after this, because this actually does tie right into the GameStop thing. Okay. I couldn't remember.
Well, no wonder GameStop's doing so well, dude. They have Starwall available for their stores. Like, what do you want?
Yeah, I definitely didn't only buy it on Steam. I'm sorry, GameStop. Anyways, so Narwhals, Nick, I probably figured this out back in 20 whatever, whenever you were in Kansas and we were playing Starwalls at GameStop. For the vast majority of my life, with maybe a short respite in the middle there where I realized it after this game was released, but I quickly returned to this state, I didn't realize that narwhals were real animals.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. I think I'm laughing, but like, I think I'm laughing because it's very... They're the unicorns of the whale,
they
or whatever, right? Of like a blubbery
and like
blubbery sea creatures mixed with
right.
Unicorns.
And like, unicorns are horses with horns, which are kind of like deer, I guess, or something, or elk or whatever. But like those are different. Like they don't have just the one horn, and it's not like there's deer and elk of the sea like they are just with their antlers swimming around that I know of. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But
maybe
Nick,
they are.
Like there has been the vast majority of my life. And like, to be completely honest, I've, since putting this as our intro topic, I've looked into narwhals, and like I've seen some high quality footage that seems to suggest that they exist, but
they're real. They're like, real things.
Like,
yeah, they are. They are.
Graphic artists these days, Nick, they could do a lot of good CGI, and I'm not so sure that I'm not being.
Are you being gaslit by the entire world about narwhal?
Yes, about narwhal, because big narwhal.
It's the big narwhal conspiracy. It goes all the way to the top, Jeff.
But like, I say that jokingly. I literally did not realize that narwhals were a real animal. And I don't really know exactly where I want to go with this. I did.
Can I ask you a favor while we're talking about this? I'm sorry, I really didn't want to. I don't want to interrupt, but I do need you to be on this vibe with me. In our Discord, can you click on the picture that I just put there and open the original? Yes. This is a illustration of the smuggest narwhal of all. This is the best illustration. We gotta put this in the show notes. This is just on Wikipedia. This is amazing.
Like, dude, this narwhal is just bragging. Like he's like, yeah, I don't even need to say anything.
I got a horn.
You know what? Oh my gosh.
Okay, so now that we're vibing on this,
okay,
go ahead.
I do want to talk a little bit about narwhals and specifically what I think is interesting about them. But before I do that, is there anything that you can think of, and I'm going to try to drag this out for you as long as possible, is there anything that you can think of that you did not realize was a real thing or that you had completely misunderstood for way longer than what was probably okay or should have been growing up?
So yes. And I know that there's more better examples out there because I'm a big dum-dum.
Mm-hmm.
I would freely admit that like people will sometimes I'll sometimes hear about things and be like I don't have a specific example, but I'll be that person who hears about something that everyone in the world really knows about. Like, oh yeah, like I don't have a good example, but I'll be the guy that's a 29-year-old and hearing about it for the first time, and everyone's like, "How do you not hear about this when you're 10?" Yeah. My other good example is actually very related. I didn't think reindeers were a thing until I was like 25.
Dude, that's a perfect that is the perfect comparison. I also didn't think reindeers were real.
They have red noses and fly. They're bullshit. You can't even. I'm pretty sure.
Language. Also, I'll happily bleep that because I agree.
I apologize for the language, but also you can't. I'm still not convinced. I've seen a reindeer in real life, and I'm still not convinced it was actually a reindeer. Talk to me. Tell me about narwhals.
So narwhals.
Where do you want to go?
So, have I talked to you, Nick, about how I feel about teeth stuff, like dentistry, and like how much I hate going to the dentist?
No, but I'm completely with you. It's like one of the most anxiety-inducing things in the world.
Yeah, and like my favorite part about going to the dentist is when I'm making my 6-month appointment, where I get to talk about the fact that like, hey, you know what, I'm doing this. I went to the dentist like a couple weeks ago in the beginning of February, and I got to say like, oh man, I got to make this appointment for August. Oh, I don't have to go to the dentist till August. That seems so far away. I'm so happy right now. So that's my favorite part of going to the dentist because I hate having my teeth touched and ground upon and etc. Like it's just the whole thought of it. Like I hate. Oh man, everything about that just makes me cringe so hard. Nick, the horn of a narwhal is a large tooth.
What?
It's a large tooth. A tooth that can grow 10 foot long.
Dude.
I don't like it. I do not like this at all.
I don't like it either, and I also feel really bad for the narwhal because it must be really hard to brush that tooth every night.
It has to be, especially looking at this picture of this smug narwhal, where he can maybe reach his eyeballs at best, let alone 10 feet ahead. And I guess it's like really sensitive, and so probably like has some sort of benefit in that sense. The use of this giant thing, whatever you want to call it, horn or tooth or whatever, is actually fairly unknown. They don't use it to hunt, which would be kind of like the obvious thing, like if they could go stab a bunch of stuff and, go to Chowtown on it. But that's not really what they do. And they sometimes fight with one another with it, but it's not exactly 100% clear if that's actually, like a mating thing that is the reason why they have it. But nonetheless,
okay.
Nick, it's a 10-foot tooth, which these guys can only, like the males are the bigger ones. They can get up to 18 foot long with a 10-foot tooth. Like Nick, that would be like you and me having a 3-foot plus tooth out of the front of our face. Like that is wild. And like,
I gotta tell you, that'd be really inconvenient. Like if I just had to stand in line and make like an extra 3 feet for it, that'd be really inconvenient.
Like, I thought I was not a tooth person before now, but, like, I am especially not now. That is, oh, man, I can't even tell you how hard I don't want to even think about that any more than I already have. Nick, okay, we have to move on to some follow-up. We have actually a few different things from past podcast relevance. So, Nick, this week, I had the pleasure, as many people did, in fact, millions of people, based on the numbers on the live stream, to watch the Perseverance rover land safely on the surface of Mars. It did it.
Yes.
It did the thing.
We did the thing.
Oh, my gosh. Nick, it was... I'm so glad that I took the time off to go home and just watch it at home for a couple of reasons. One... I got to watch it with my son and my wife, who are by themselves, I say this equally to both of them, by themselves would not be, necessarily looking out for this sort of thing. My son, with the excuse that he is 4 years old, and my wife, with the excuse that not everybody's as big of a nerd as I am, but they
Can I
both...
tell you that I was texting my wife about it, and she stopped in the middle and said, "Stop texting me. I have to pay attention to this." And I was like, "Okay,
That's awesome."
I'm glad you got to watch it with your son.
No, and he didn't like. The thing about it is, the thing about 4-year-olds is attention span is a big deal, and
really interesting. Okay,
I watched it. We watched it together for an entire hour. And he was very interested in it at first and was interested in talking about how, like, all the things were going to happen. And, like, they had the model of the rover that was out there in Florida that they talked about. And he was really excited to see it. The animation or whatever, the simulation version of the landing does not really do it for him. And he doesn't really understand the emotional part of all the rest. Since then, we've watched the actual video and he thinks it's super cool, but he didn't really get why it was so impactful as it was happening.
Right.
But no, it was one of those things where
your 4-year-old didn't have the cultural context to place it as an important.
Yeah, what a jerk. Okay. He's probably going to grow up to be nothing.
The 4-year-old who's also spent a year in quarantine.
Yeah, seriously. But no, well, first off, I'm very glad, and honestly, a big part of the reason why I took this time off was because of this podcast. Originally, because I thought we were going to do something where we'd talk about it, but honestly, as it approached quickly, I realized like there's no way I'm even going to be able to like focus on anything else other than staring nervously at the screen as it was happening. But I didn't and I think I tweeted about this every minute that went by, like my anxiety doubled as we got closer and closer to the surface, and like everything that went well was like an elation to me. And when we finally landed and everything checked out good, like it was such an exciting time. I talked about crying last week, and I definitely teared up at the experience. And here's the reason why. Is because I, as a person who really enjoys space stuff, and Nick, you and I talked about this, but I do genuinely believe that a failure in this sense would have set back things that we would have witnessed in our lifetime by a decade or more, because what we were able to prove now is a repeat of what we did back, I think, I don't know, whatever it was, a decade, give or take a couple years, with landing Curiosity, where we effectively used the exact same method with a little bit more advanced tech and had an absolutely flawless landing, which means like we're getting to the point where we have what seems to be a reliable way to get to another planet, which is just baffling.
Insane. Baffling is exactly right. It's freaking nuts.
And if we're able to do this reliably, I mean, this is exactly what we need to be able to be possible to send a human to Mars within our lifetimes, or potentially even within the next decade or so. That thought had slipped into my mind as I was watching this autonomous rover gracefully land on the planet. Of like, what would I feel like if this was a person? Like I was so emotional about the fact that we were able to do this as a species, as a country, as a just as a people. Like it was such a cool thing. But it is an entirely different emotion to think about what it would be like to put an actual person on Mars. And I can only imagine what it would have been like back in the late 60s to put an astronaut on the moon. Like, especially given the technological differences of the times, like that seems almost even more magical that was even something that was possible. And I wish I could have experienced that. Turns out I'm not going to be able to go back in time and make that happen.
I also think that there's a level of like emotions are interesting, because I think that emotions and experiences are especially emotional and impactful when they are novel and very new. And like, even though you and I didn't live through the moon landing, we know of the cultural impact of the moon landing, and we know of space travel as a huge like cultural touchstone and way that we come together and stuff. So, even though this was an amazing day and like I was incredibly excited, even just sitting on my computer alone watching a YouTube stream, I don't think that it could have the overwhelmingness of just novel, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like being so unique and novel that the moon landing did. But like it's still freaking amazing. It's still an insane achievement. It's just as much of an achievement in my mind. I don't know.
It is, and I mean that's how kind of I frame that is at the end of the day, technically, from a technical standpoint, this is something that we have achieved before. There are many more things on this mission that will be firsts, but the landing itself was a repeat. But even that is still such and I say repeat, that's kind of a oversimplification. Like there were things about this that were special. But by and large, like the general concept was the same as how we got Curiosity on Mars. Yep. But it really is the ability to replicate something that we thought would work a second time that really does bode well for our ability to do more and more in space. And entertainment in general is an interesting thing. Like there's movies and there's podcasts and there's TV series and etc. But there is nothing to me, and I think to many people that are inspired by this sort of thing, as special as something like getting something to another planet or getting a person to another planet and seeing the imagery from that, and like that inspires a generation. And I don't think I'm underselling it when I say like this both inspires a generation and sets, from a science perspective, us in a very good position to be able to do some really cool stuff in the upcoming decade and thereon. But every amount of emotion I thought that I would feel, I felt. It's a funny thing because like you go into something like that and you're like, oh man, like I've talked about how much I care about this and I think it's an important thing. And I think it's a very cool thing. I should feel the way that I feel, but at the end of the day, you can only control how you feel. Like I'm sorry, I mean to say like you can't control how you feel. Like the reaction is what the reaction is, and it was what I thought it would be. Like I genuinely feel so excited for the people that worked on that mission. I'm so happy for them. Given the circumstances of this year, especially. They had to do all of these things probably a lot remote or in circumstances that they wouldn't have to have done otherwise. To have it result in a success is just the dang coolest thing ever. I
completely agree. It was kind of overwhelming in a way of like just human achievement, right? I don't want to just repeat what you said, but it's kind of overwhelming and kind of impressive on a scale that you don't really think about as humans coming together at such a large scale and on such a monumental and like tangible thing. Mm-hmm. I know that our society at large has a massive achievement and technology and whatever, but it's so tangible and visible right there of like we can come together and do such an incredible thing.
So Nick, as a person who isn't super, I should say into it, I just mean like as a person who used to follow this all the time. What do you think the over-under is on a person on Mars in the 2020s? Do you think that's going to be a thing we see?
I would imagine not, right? I mean, I don't think that we haven't had astronauts leave. Even make it to the moon in how long? Like 30 years, 40 years, something like that, right?
50 years.
50 years, yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't know. I imagine not in 2020. I imagine that we are going to get a lot. Like, I also think that the way that we have tech and, like, the amount of remote control that we have on things, it doesn't, to me, make that much sense to risk it until it's this is as a super outsider, not just because I don't follow along with all the updates, but just I can't imagine that you would risk a dangerous mission when you could simply continue to expand your remote missions until it's absolutely necessary or as safe as it could possibly be.
What your point? I don't know if that is based in things you've heard or just your general observation, but that is 100% the thing. Is like we are moving more and more to a autonomous society. Like, just look at vehicles as the example of that, but even more so when you're talking about autonomous vehicles have the advantage of being more safe, and we're talking on the scale of thousands and millions of people driving. If you only have a handful of astronauts that are capable of going to Mars and trained to go to Mars, it certainly makes sense to make that investment to, if we're ever going to be at a point where we need to send them or want to send them, we probably have a lot of opportunity to do autonomous things first. It's not even from because to be quite honest, I don't think it's from a cost perspective that's a consideration. I think it's more so from a reputational risk. Like if anything were to go wrong, that could totally kill a program. And if something were to go, if a Mars rover were to crash into the surface of Mars and explode, that has much less of an impact as if a manned vehicle explodes on Mars. Like that ends a program versus that maybe sets a program back a decade.
Right. Yeah.
But anyways, it's very interesting. I very much look forward to what the upcoming things that we get from the Perseverance rover look like. I am dang excited to see that stupid little helicopter guy fly around and do little giant drone-sized. I don't know. The whole thing is so dang cool. But no, I'm very excited to see what that does and the whole thing. There's already some really cool imagery out there. But Nick, perhaps, some might argue even more important. Apparently, there's some things to talk about on the Fry's Electronics follow-up.
Let me just say that even as I put this here, I would say 0 people in the world would say that this is more important. I don't think the Fry's CEO thinks that this is more important.
Nick, what about our podcast listeners that are not space fans? I feel like there's got to be there has to be a subset here.
There's a listener out there who just is really invested on Fry's and has no
that's
interest.
How we brought them in.
Space is, we're not going to Mars while I'm alive. Screw Mars. That's that one person. Anyways,
unless it's a Fry's Electronics theme themed store, in which case I care about it very much. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Jeff, I'm sorry to hear that you care about it very much because Fry's closed its doors today, and closing all locations, or closed all locations today, and fired basically all staff, and it is kind of weird, and that is the
well,
start.
That's a freaking bummer.
I know. Remember when this?
Oh man, I know it was kind of like a possibility, but
yeah. So honestly, when I was researching it, I thought it was more and more likely. And for our listeners out there, I used to once upon a time, long ago, work at an electronics retailer. Actually, 2 different electronic retailers, but one of them was a very small store. And I can tell you that at the time, there was a whole bunch of talk about Fry's and stuff, and as someone who sort of has some semblance of an understanding of stuff that's happening in that industry of big box electronic retailers, there's been writing on the wall for them for some time. They've been declining, and they had shut down a couple of stores, and I don't think that they'd opened any new stores in a very long time. And if you went to some of their stores as a shopper, I would go to stores because I consider myself the kind of person who would be a Fry's core customer, a tech enthusiast who wants to go and build my own computers and get upgrades.
To harken back to our episode on it, the Silicon Valley man.
Yeah, exactly. You know me, Silicon Valley man needs my groceries, and I also needs my motherboards. You know me.
Oh man.
But yeah, I went to one and I was shocked at how little they had in stock, and I've seen pictures of them from as far back as 2018, I think, while I was researching this, of just empty shelves for a couple of aisles, and yeah.
Well, it is that's sad.
Go ahead. It
is. Well, nope. There wasn't much more that I was going to say other than that. Sad.
It is. It's kind of a bummer because as that kind of person, I don't like to attach myself to big corporations. I don't think it's a really good outlook on life to be like, oh, I'm a big fan of a big box store. You know, if I called myself a Fry's fan, that would probably be a bad outlook for me to have, in my opinion. But I did appreciate what they were. They were another competitor for tech, and if it was another outlet to find tech products at a different price or different sales or a different selection than other places, that's always a good thing for us as consumers. And they were also a lot of fun. Growing up as a nerd, it's like you'd get, I lived far from a Micro Center for a long time, so it was like if you wanted like the cool stuff or like a good processor, and you didn't like, Best Buy isn't gonna have all of the best parts or the biggest selection of core tech stuff. Fry's was where you'd go, and it's just a bummer, man. It's like a little piece of quirky Silicon Valley history just shutting the doors.
Okay, so Nick, here's the thing. They have some amazing buildings. What let's say you're going to take advantage of this opportunity to pick up all these Fry's, which is a hilarious sentence to say. What's the opportunity here, Nick?
Well,
there's a lot of good real estate here.
So let me tell you, warehouse sized escape rooms is my go-to here. I need like a giant, like hard mode escape room that is very theme centered. I need an escape room company that wants to have a big chain of escape rooms all over the country and especially in California. That's like, I could really go for a rodeo themed escape room that took 4 hours because it's the size of a warehouse. And that's what I want.
I'm legitimately like, I'm trying to think of a better idea, and I think you might have just hit it. Freaking in one right here.
And that was on the top of the dome. This is a strange moment for me where I actually felt like I came up with something creative. But wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't you be into that, of like a supersized escape room?
Oh man, like especially like the little alien invasion themed one. Like you can have multiple like zones. Oh man,
be so good,
Nicholas.
Be so good.
What are we doing with this podcast?
I don't know. Let's just start looking into business loans for for our new venture.
You know what? You let me know how it goes. I'll listen from afar. Oh man. Have you done escape rooms much?
A couple. I've done five or six.
A couple, 5 or 6. As they say, a couple, 5 or 6.
I should have said a few.
What do you feel like is the right number of people for an escape room?
I think that the most fun I had, so I say a few and everything. The reason I had done so many is I had a place that did escape rooms that was like literally like 2 minutes drive from my house. It was amazing.
Oh, nice.
And so my coworkers and I would go do it, and I would say like 7, like 6, 7-ish people.
Oh man, I feel like it's too many.
Do you? Okay.
I do. And the reason why I say that is, and maybe it's because of the type of personality that I am. I feel like...
Oh, I already know where this is going, yeah.
Well, basically what I feel like is not good in escape rooms is too many people thinking they know the direction that they ought to go. Like, I feel like you need like 2 people that can kind of butt heads a little bit as far as what is the right way to like direct our attention. But otherwise, I feel like if you have more than... I don't know. It feels like that 7 people, that's an opportunity to be splintered off into too many directions.
So I agree. And I think where you're going wrong here is that you're thinking of 7 of us, right? Like, if there were 7 Nick and Jeffs in a room, that would never get it done, because I would be holding on to one thing, like a clue thing, and like trying to figure out a lock combination, and then 3 people would be over my shoulder, all telling me that I'm doing it wrong. So
I will admit I am fully self-aware in the fact that if I was in an escape room with 6 other copies of myself, that I would be the problem.
Right, exactly.
I would be absolutely insufferable.
You and I would be great with 5. So like when I did it with my coworkers, we would always go late after work. This place is awesome, and it was open till started stuff as late as like 11 p.m. So it was like really awesome. We would like go get dinner after work and then go to these escape rooms. But the people that I went with were a very good mix of like very social leaders and very like talkative leaders, and then also the really smart people who are very underspoken. or understated, or or soft spoken. There's the word. Not the overly talkative person. So the nice thing was like you'd only hear Robert when he had figured out a puzzle, and otherwise he wouldn't push everybody to like, guys, we gotta figure out this thing. Everybody look around for no. You just be like, Robert would be like, I got something here, dude. You need the code. There's a code, and you'd be like, Robert coming in clutch. And like I had a good mix of that with my group that I would do stuff with, and maybe that's coloring my thought process. But you're totally right. I think if you did like 4 people who are all kind of talkative and kind of loud, like how you and I are, that like you'd probably be just as fine, right? You'd be better off than going too many of the many loud people.
One of my favorite escape room memories was we were doing a thing. It was a work thing as well. And one of the people with us literally just brute forced a lock, like just guessing numbers, and like skipped like a good half of the thing. Which is like the most like you could like, because we were getting some random hints because we were struggling a little bit from the people that were running the thing, but once we brute forced a lock that skipped half the thing, we got no more hints. Jerks.
So my best escape room memory is that we went to one of these like really late ones that was like 11, and none of us were drunk, like genuinely not drunk, like, but we'd had dinner with drinks, right? So like we'd had, and one of the people that we were there with, who is actually probably the most talkative person that we were there with, was holding a like a sheet of paper that had hints and stuff, but it was like a pattern hint. And the like I think it was like that we had to align shapes and something in a certain way. I can't remember the exact details, but the reason we say is that someone like after like 10 minutes of not getting this right while he was trying to tell us this is the I don't know, the person who's running the escape room and who's telling you your hints called over the loudspeaker. He's like, I don't count this as a hint, but you're holding the map upside down. That's great. And we just like basically were like, okay, Dalton's a little drunk out here. I just can't even keep the map.
Man. That's awesome.
Yep. So
man. Speaking of holding the map upside down. So Nick, back in the day when we first started this podcast, I had this brilliant idea that I thought was going to, really set a standard amongst podcasts, where we were going to talk about a stock from that week. And I was going to buy the stock that you chose out of the 2 choices, and we were going to see how it went.
The best segment.
Yeah, and which is really funny because like back, not back looking at it, like I figured it out very quickly, like the week or 2 after. Turns out there are other podcasts that do that, and they are way smarter about it than we are. So it wasn't going to be a particularly long-lasting bit. However, I still am interested in stocks and such, and it's been a very interesting time for stocks and such.
Has it?
Yeah.
Has there been weird stock stuff happening in 2021?
Nick, I want you to give me the rundown of what has happened with GameStop this past
GameStop's month. So I haven't been following any of the more recent updates with it. But as far as I know, GameStop's just a real good stock. You should just have some of that. Is what you should do. Yep. And same thing with AMC.
Okay. Yes, with AMC. Okay.
So I know that GameStop stops had been shorted to like an absurd extent, and so the Wall Street Bets subreddit decided that they could effectively get an insane return on their investments by buying up a bunch of stocks and holding off on selling them for a while and whatever else.
Exactly. I mean, that is an oversimplification, and it remains to be the case. But and I don't mean to say that like derogatorily. Like I also can't really explain it all that much better than what you just did. What happened was very unprecedented, and it's been very interesting because since then there was a House hearing where the guy that kind of started the whole GME thing on the Wall Street Bet subreddit testified, which was a very weird Reddit like to see somebody that is a random famous Reddit person.
occasionally Reddit leaks its way into the real life, and it's not okay, and it's never good. I didn't actually follow that. I knew that he was going to testify, but I didn't even follow that he had testified.
I think he absolutely freaking killed it. Not from like just like a Reddit meme perspective. I think he genuinely did a really good job.
Very cool. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, you have to check it out. I have been doing stock stuff more like just kind of as a hobby here recently. And so I was willing to do some stuff on our podcast talking about stock things. And it turned uninteresting pretty quickly. And so we cut it from the show. However, that was all predating AMC and GameStop shenanigans. And have I even caught you up on, like, do you know where this is, like, where I am at with this?
No.
Okay. So I am.
Do you have AMC stock? Or I assume you didn't get in on GME at the time, right?
Okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I am fairly risk averse, but I am interested in phenomenons. So I did invest in both GME and AMC after their peak, but before they were as low as what they are now. So let's talk about GameStop first. So I was originally interested in potentially getting in on the absolutely ridiculous thing that was the stuff that was going on in Wall Street Bets back when GameStop was like $40 a share. I decided not to because I only, like, if you go back and listen to it, like, I'm only making $50 bets anyways. I have other things that I think are better things long term. That's actually what I'm doing this for. But it was an interesting thing because it was a big deal, and this is the most I've paid attention to week on stocks and stuff. And so I didn't do anything then. And then GME exploded and went up to $400 a share, and then came back down to 90, which is where I bought in at. So now you know where I'm at.
Okay.
And so I bought in at $90 thinking like, maybe it's not quite over yet. Maybe it'll bounce back. It did not. It went back down to $40, which is where I was originally thinking it was going to go, or what I was originally thinking about buying in. And I had lost 50%-ish, a little bit more.
Oof.
I did basically the exact same thing with AMC with the exact same result. So
I'm sorry, man. That's a bummer.
However, so this is why I wanted to mention it. And this is why you should never do this sort of thing. GameStop was a stock that I bought and I lost 50% on. Basically, like, honestly, Nick, it happened in about like 4 hours. Maybe it was overnight. I don't know, but nonetheless, like, it didn't go well very quickly. So, but I held it. Like, I didn't want to sell it. My whole, like, there's a whole, like, lots of memes and stuff like that. My whole thing was I went off this crazy roller coaster. The second that I'm even close to positive or break even, I just went off. So I've held this entire time. Today, GameStop, they fired their CFO yesterday or today, and they hired a new CFO, or are going to, or whatever. It caused the stock to explode again. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
I have not.
It got up to like $80 or something like that, and then they halted trading on it because it had exploded so quickly. And I'm like, $80. That's pretty close to 90. I just, like I said, I went off this crazy roller coaster. So I submitted a sell that didn't get executed for like 20 or 30 minutes because of just all the trading that was happening. And turned out it didn't execute until it had then jumped another $10. So
Damn.
I basically broke even. I actually made like a few bucks or whatever.
Nice.
on GameStop. But anyways, I was very happy to break even. However, Nick, after my trade executed, within 20 minutes, it literally doubled in price.
Wait, what?
It doubled in price literally minutes after I sold.
Jeff, I'm looking at this. That's insane. Jeff!
Yeah. So, worked out. I got off the roller coaster at the very beginning of the ride, apparently.
At 4:05 p.m., it was $86. At 4:50, it's...
Hey, you know what? I'm...
185. Jeff!
Yeah.
What?
Peaked at 185.
It went up $100 in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
What? Jeff.
Well, if you want to find a better place to spend some money other than dumb stocks that lose their value by 50% as soon as you buy them, you should really check out Santa Cruz Mountain Essentials. They have awesome clothing. Both my wife and myself have a couple pieces, and we love them. They, in addition to having awesome clothes, though, they donate 10% of each sale to a nonprofit, such as Friends of Santa Cruz State Parks. And if that wasn't enough, they also partner with One Tree Planted, which means every purchase will result in a tree being planted out to support reforestation, which is pretty awesome. It's nice to know that the company supporting us is doing so much other good out in the world. You should go check them out at scmessentials.com, and you can use TYWSAP to save 10% at checkout. That's TYWSAP at checkout to save 10%. And you should also go give them a follow on Instagram to keep up to date on any new releases they may have. But yeah, thank you, Santa Cruz Mountain Essentials, for supporting our show. So, Nick, so in talking to you, like, I know, like, you have some sort of experience with, like, kind of well-known people that you're acquaintances with.
Yeah.
I've had the experience now of having a person that I was an acquaintance with that has become fairly well-known in kind of a weird way. In your experience, though, like I said, like, you've kind of known people that are well known, but, like, have you known people before and after they've become well known, or is that?
Yes.
Oh, you have.
So I've
okay.
Yes, but not at like a very big scale. So the most famous person or people that I should say that I've ever known, I knew after they were famous. And then I've known some people who had like a moderate amount of fame, like if you brought them up to the right people who are super connected to that scene or whatever, that they would know them for sure, but that otherwise may not have. I'll just spell out. I've known a couple of D1 college athletes before they were D1, including one who was a relatively successful quarterback at the college level, and I knew him as a middle schooler. And
wait, really?
Yeah,
I'll cut it out. But who do you know?
Well, he's not famous anymore, but his name's. I think he actually plays in the CFL now.
Who did he play for in college?
He played for like a year, and then so he was really famous at the high school level. After I knew him, he was my neighbor. I've known him, he's like 2 years younger than me or 2 grades younger than me.
Okay.
So I knew him. I used to play basketball with him, and he'd come over and play basketball on my hoop out front. But he was really successful in high school, but he didn't get playing time on because like the guy who was a year ahead of him or whatever became like really good. So he bounced around between different colleges, trying to get a fit. But yeah, I knew him before and after, and I like had this weird, like we like saw each other again in summers, in the first 2 summers after he went to college. And he was like, it was kind of weird because like everyone in my hometown talked about him all the time. And then I knew a guy who played at UC Irvine, which is not like big or anything, but I used to play basketball with a guy who went on to play at UC Irvine and was a starter there. So like, you know, if you were
this is crazy. So I'm sorry, I'm looking up the guy. The reason why he got the shaft was because he played behind who was the number 1 overall pick in 20.
Oh, yeah, there you go. See, that's what I'm saying. Is like he was supposed to be this really highly touted recruit, and he was expecting to like play a ton, and then it just kind of never happened. Like, and I talked to him when he was, or like one of the times that I like kind of reconnected with him was when he was like considering transferring, and it was like super sad because he had been this insanely successful athlete. He's a really nice kid, but it's also like he became a really nice kid, but it's really funny because he used to bug the crap out of Jordan and I, and like it's really, really funny. He cried playing touch football with Jordan and I out front when I was like 14, 15, and like I had to do this whole like apology thing to him, and like my parents got involved. Like they thought that like we were bullying him or something, I promise you that wasn't the case. And then like 3 years later, I'm out of high school, and it's like, oh yeah, the neighbor kid. Yeah, well, anyways, he's absolutely crushing it, and he's like gonna be. It's like, okay. When I reconnected with him, he was a great kid, but it was so weird to think of a kid who cried playing touch football and not really falling, then getting sacked by like freaking college linebackers, and like, you know, like what do you? I don't know. It's like a really stark contrast. But really, really nice guy. Really nice guy.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Same sport. Like playing against Jordan Phillips, who got drafted by the Dolphins and has gone on different teams and done some pretty good defensive line stuff. Who I blocked when I was a a senior. He was a freshman my senior year in high school. I played tight end. He played defensive end / defensive tackle. So I blocked him a lot, and he was super lazy and a total bum. But
you told me that, and then he ends up being
absolutely gifted as an athlete, though. Like, at least last I checked, could still do a backflip, standing backflip in pads at 300 and whatever 40 pounds he is, which is just like doesn't even seem like that should be possible.
Oh my god!
But no, so no. What I have had the experience of here over the past year. Mostly over the pandemic is where it's kind of taken off, is a person who was actually, funnily enough, I hadn't even thought about this until just now. I got an offer to go play tight end at a private college in Kansas, and it was going to cost an arm and a leg to go do that because private colleges are expensive, turns out, and our local college, even with the partial scholarship doing football, would have still have been significantly more than what I would have paid just at the local college. So,
right.
My connection to that school, the quarterback was a quarterback for me, 2 years older than I was, so I would have been a sophomore when he was a senior. So we knew each other. I wasn't super good back then when I was a sophomore, but like we definitely knew who each other were. Long way to say. Not super close or anything like that. Friends on Facebook, know who each other are, could pick each other out of lineup, friends and whatever. He ended up being a PE teacher. However, this past year, he has became a very famous TikTok person.
Oh, interesting.
To the extent that like, so Shaq bought him and all his class pizzas.
What? That's sick.
So like,
wait, that was him? That's super. I saw the Shaq story on Reddit.
No way! I didn't even know he was on Reddit for this. Oh my god!
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'll find the thread for you. I'll find this, but I think it was on thread. I assume it was on Reddit. That's where I get most of my NBA news because I'm boring. But yeah.
Yeah. So got pizza from Shaq for his class. This week he's going to be on the Dr. Oz show with him and his wife, which. Not going to necessarily endorse everything that Mr. Oz has to say, but
whatever.
You know what? If Mr. Oz wants to have us on the show, not going to say that I would say no.
That's a ringing endorsement for it. It's a great pitch.
Yeah, please. I take it all back, Mr. Oz. But no. Like it's very interesting to see a person who. Like I was casually an acquaintance with, and continue to be like he's a good guy, and like I would 100% expect nothing less. Like he's just a good person. But to see him in the time of a year go from a nobody who would have been the person that would have been throwing me passes at Friends University to a person who then turned into a PE teacher, who then turned into a TikTok sensation is very, very strange.
That's super cool.
I don't even know how to, because like you see that happen with people that you potentially follow. I mean, just by the nature of the fact that you follow them. Like there's YouTube people that you are interested in. There's podcast people that you're interested in. Like all those people have had that sort of thing happen to them, but it always kind of feels like that happens in an alternate universe where that always was going to happen to them.
Right.
Whereas this person very well could just have been a PE teacher for forever, Yep. It's very weird.
I completely agree. To me, this was just somebody I knew that was just like part of my town and part of my you expect them to go up and have a normal job and a normal life with normal things, and then at some point in time, you're just like, I'm sorry, excuse me, they're what now? They're who? They have this weird notoriety and fame, and that's yeah.
Have you ran into famous people being that you live out there in good old California?
Yeah. Well, like sort of. Think I moved to Southern California right before the pandemic, so I didn't have that long of a time. I don't even know if I told you this story, but I saw Kobe out with his kids like 4 days before he died. It was
Frick.
super surreal. And on the humanizing thing, I grew up with somebody with a friend who had a dad who was famous. And his dad. It was really kind of like a hard thing sometimes, not always, but sometimes, where like he'd be trying to have a normal day out watching a baseball game with his kids, and people would be harassing him, or not harassing him. So not harassing is too strong of a word, but a bunch of people would be trying to get a minute or two of his time. And when it's 100 people doing that, all of a sudden you don't have your day out with your kid, right? So I saw Kobe out with his kids at a like little koi pond that's kind of near here. And he was like just playing with his kids, and his daughters were like laughing at the kois in the pond. And I just like kind of had to not say anything, because I was like, I can't go harass this guy and take away a sweet moment with his kids just to tell him like, hey, I too am one of the 400 million people who's a fan of you. So yeah. Other than that, I don't have any good celebrity spotting moments. When I didn't live in California, everybody would always ask me if I, do you just know all these actors? No? How come? You lived in California. But no, no good celebrity spotting other than that.
I feel like because I do have one kind of funny story, but I do feel like we'll let Kobe have his space here. I think that's fair and a good thing. Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring a downer on it.
It's good, and with the stuff going on with Tiger Woods this week and all the other things, like, we are lucky to have the sports heroes that we do, and Kobe is chief among them, to have a suitable ending to our podcast this week. There's nothing I can say that is that gives justice to what that guy deserves. We've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of people enjoy our show and reach out to us and talk about the fact that they enjoy our show. If you do want to reach out to us, you can. So first off, I will say finding topics every week is not the easiest thing in the world. If you have something that you think would be interesting, please feel free to shoot us an email at tywasap@gmail.com. I'm more and more thinking that should be a thing that we suggest to people as a way to support our show. Because, we think we have things that are fun and interesting, but if you have things that you think are fun and interesting, it probably is fun and interesting to the other people that listen to the show. And I love learning about new things that are going on, or old things that have gone on. There's a lot of fun and interesting things out there.
It's hard because so some of my favorite topics we've done here have been times where I've kind of been outside of my usual sphere of consumption or like knowledge, and when I've gotten to step out and be like, oh my god, I learned about this, man, I forgot his name already, the last hermit or whatever, the Northwoods or North Lake hermit, I believe was the name. Wow, I've already forgotten.
I also have forgotten it. Yeah, I have just edited this episode like 4 days ago. I feel so bad.
But
we're so good. Yes, whoever he was.
Yes. But at the same time, like that was an interesting story because it kind of is not in my usual wheelhouse of things. And so the hard thing is that it's hard to constantly find things that are fun and interesting outside of your usual wheelhouse. So if anyone has any suggestions, I would love to expand my horizons and hear your suggestions.
Yeah, and I think I will take that as the point of action for this week. If you have anything that you think would be a fun thing to discuss, email us at tywasap@gmail.com. Obviously, as usual, you can follow us at anywhere you can follow people other than Snapchat at tywasap. And we really appreciate our patrons. We have a Patreon-only podcast that we record directly preceding this one, where we just talk about some of the things that are going on in our life and just things that we find interesting, much less prepared, if you can believe it or not, than this podcast.
Slightly different tone, a little more off the cuff, right?
Yeah, a little more off the cuff, and just willing to take wherever the conversation goes. It's literally my excuse to talk to Nick about things just on a friend level. He doesn't know that, so don't tell him.
I couldn't pick that up from the way that the last 3 conversations have gone.
For those that are patrons, we super appreciate you. We hope that you enjoy our extra episode. If you have anything that you would like to bring up to us, or things that you would find interesting to talk about, we will. I will give you the commitment. If you're a Patreon supporter, we will find a way to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about on the show. I will make at least for now. I can make that commitment.
One of our patrons is someone that is a friend of ours that you should not extend that promise to. That's not fair.
I guess. Okay, sure. You know what? You're right. I extend that to people that you know what? Actually, how do I?
Don't dig yourself a hole.
How do I fence this in, Nick?
No, don't dig yourself a hole. Let's just.
I extend the opportunity to consider the things that you share above all else. However, I still retain the
executive authority
to. Yeah, I like it. Just because you may think it's a good idea doesn't mean it is. Anyways, Nick, I appreciate you taking the time to pod with me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And,
you're welcome. You're welcome. This has been the year we started the podcast. Thank you for listening.
It wouldn't be anything if I didn't botch the intro and the outro.